The arena stretched across 3 kilometers of polished titanium flooring, its ceiling lost somewhere in the artificial sky projected above. Crystalline walls hummed with energy fields that could withstand antimatter explosions. This was the Galactic Combat Coliseum, and today it hosted representatives from 247 species, all gathered to witness what the Zinthrian Empire called the culmination of 3 centuries of engineering genius. The crowd's anticipation rippled through the air like static electricity. Insectoid klaxions clicked their mandibles in rhythmic patterns. The gaseous nerfolk swirled in their containment spheres, colors shifting from deep violet to excited orange. 4-armed Trekkan delegates drummed their fingers against their seats in synchronized patterns. Every species present had contributed their finest warriors to the tournament over the past decade, and every single one had fallen before the machine dot at the arena center stood Unit 347, though the galaxy had come to know it by another name, the Undefeated. It rose 12 feet tall, its frame constructed from compressed neutron star material harvested from the Andromeda periphery. The metal gleamed like liquid mercury under the arena lights, flowing and reforming with each micro-adjustment of its stance. Its neural network contained the combat knowledge of 6,000 species. Every martial art, every fighting technique, every strategy ever recorded across 3 galaxies. The Zintharians had spared no expense. Their lead engineer, a female named Kreshtel, stood in the royal viewing box, her silver scales reflecting the pride that radiated from her entire being. She had dedicated her entire life to this project, 60 years of tireless work. The Emperor himself had commissioned Unit 347 as a demonstration of Zinthrian supremacy, a symbol to remind the galaxy who truly led the advancement of technology and civilization. "It cannot be defeated," Kreshtal announced to the assembled dignitaries, her voice amplified across the arena. "We have tested it against combat drones, against champion warriors, against entire platoons. Its predictive algorithms can calculate 17 million possible attack combinations per nanosecond. Its reaction time is measured in picoseconds. It adapts, it learns, and it conquers." The crowd murmured approval, though some species showed less enthusiasm than others. The Porgith ambassador, a crystalline being who communicated through light refraction, flickered in what might have been skepticism. The Velkor delegation, proud warrior people who had lost their greatest fighter to Unit 347 6 months ago, sat in stony silence. "Today," Kreshtel continued, "we open the floor to any challenger from any world. We have placed no restrictions on species, size, or augmentation level. Whoever can defeat Unit 347 will receive not only the victor's purse of 1 billion galactic credits, but also the eternal respect of the Zinthrian Empire." The silence that followed was heavy. No one moved. No one volunteered. Unit 347 had carved through champions like a fusion cutter through ice. It had dismantled a Trekkan berserker in 4 seconds. It had outmaneuvered a Klaxian swarm fighter whose reflexes were enhanced by a hive mind connection to 10,000 drones. It had withstood a Nerfolk energy being who could shift between solid and plasma states at will, the Emperor, a massive Zinthrian whose scales had turned deep purple with age and wisdom, leaned forward in his throne. "Surely the galaxy has not run out of brave souls," he rumbled, his voice like distant thunder. "Where are the mighty Velkor? Where are the cunning Porgith? Has fear so gripped the assembled worlds that none dare test themselves?" Still, the arena remained quiet. Species who had once prided themselves on martial prowess now found reasons to study their claws, tentacles, or appendages with sudden intense interest. Then, from the farthest section of the arena, a voice called out. It was unremarkable in volume, but something about its tone cut through the silence like a blade. "I'll give it a shot." Heads turned. Sensors swiveled. The crowd shifted to locate the source of the voice. There, in the cheap seats designated for species without official diplomatic status, stood a human. The creature was average height for its kind, perhaps 6 feet tall, with a lean build and messy brown hair. It wore simple clothing, some kind of gray athletic wear that looked positively primitive, compared to the advanced fabrics and energy shields worn by most attendees. A ripple of confusion spread through the crowd. Humans were known to the galaxy, but barely. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 40 years ago. Their world, Earth, sat in an unremarkable spiral arm of the Milky Way. They had no great technologies to offer, no unique resources that couldn't be found elsewhere, no powerful military to command respect. They were, by all accounts, an insignificant species still finding their footing among the stars. Kreshtel's scales flashed with colors that indicated amusement mixed with confusion. A human wishes to challenge Unit 347? She couldn't quite keep the condescension from her voice. Are you certain you understand what you're volunteering for? This is not a simulation or a training exercise. Unit 347 will not hold back. The human made his way down the arena steps with a casual gait that seemed almost disrespectful. As he approached the arena floor, the lights illuminated his features more clearly. He had a weathered face, the kind that suggested someone who had seen more than his apparent age would indicate. His eyes were a startling blue, and they held something the crowd couldn't quite identify. Not fear, not bravado either. Something else. Something calm. Yeah, I got it, the human said, rolling his shoulders as he stepped onto the titanium floor. Big scary robot. Advanced technology. Undefeated champion. Did I miss anything? The Emperor leaned forward with interest. It had been many cycles since anyone had shown such casual disregard for a challenge of this magnitude. What is your name, human? Marcus Chun, the human replied, stretching his legs in what appeared to be some kind of warm-up routine. Former military, current freelance cargo runner. Saw the tournament announcement at a space station bar. Figured I'd check it out. You do understand the nature of this challenge? The Emperor pressed. Unit 347 has defeated champions who trained their entire lives for combat. It has processing power that exceeds the combined cognitive capacity of everyone in this arena. What makes you believe you stand a chance? Marcus paused his stretching and looked up at the viewing box. A slight smile played at the corner of his mouth. Because I've seen plenty of things that were supposed to be unbeatable. In my experience, the more complex something is, the easier it breaks. Gasps echoed through the arena. Several species made gestures that translated to shock or offense. To question Zinthrian engineering was to question the Empire itself. Kreshtel's scales flushed red with anger. You insult decades of work, human. Unit 347 represents the pinnacle of combat design. Every calculation has been verified 1 trillion times. Every component has been tested to destruction and beyond. There is no weakness to exploit. We'll see, Marcus said simply. Turning his attention to the robot. Unit 347 had remained motionless throughout the exchange. But now its optical sensors focused on the human. Its neural network began analyzing the challenger, scanning for weapons, for augmentations, for any hidden advantage. The scans returned nothing remarkable. Standard human physiology. No cybernetic enhancements. No energy shields. No exotic weapons. Just flesh, bone, and simple athletic clothing. The machine's processors struggled to understand. In its database of 17 million combat scenarios, never had an opponent entered the arena so poorly equipped. The logical conclusion was that the human was either ignorant of the danger or possessed some hidden capability that the sensors could not detect. Unit 347 adjusted its threat assessment protocols and prepared 17,000 different response strategies. The Emperor gestured with one massive claw. Very well. Let it not be said that the Zintharian Empire turned away a willing challenger, no matter how foolish. Marcus Chon of Earth, you have the honor of facing Unit 347. The match will begin on my command. Standard rules apply. Defeat occurs when one combatant cannot continue or yields. Lethal force is permitted. Marcus nodded, settling into a loose stance that didn't match any fighting style in Unit 347's database. His hands hung relaxed at his sides. His weight distributed evenly on both feet. To the trained observers in the crowd, he looked completely unprepared, almost casual. The arena's energy fields activated with a deep hum, creating an enclosed space for the combat. Medical drones positioned themselves along the perimeter, ready to extract the human's remains once the match concluded. The betting algorithms running through various species, neural implants gave Marcus a survival time of 4.7 seconds on average. The Emperor raised his claw. The crowd fell silent. Even the skeptical species leaned forward, unable to resist the spectacle of what would surely be the fastest defeat in tournament history. Begin! Unit 347 moved first, as it always did. Its predictive algorithms had calculated the optimal opening strike, a combination that would disable without immediately killing, allowing the human to yield with dignity. The machine's arm shot forward at supersonic speed. A precise strike aimed at Marcus's shoulder that would dislocate the joint and end the fight. The human moved not. It wasn't a dodge in any conventional sense. Marcus didn't leap away or duck under the strike. Instead, he shifted his weight, turned his torso. The crowd had stopped breathing. Across the arena, species with vastly different biologies all experienced the same sensation, watching something that defied their understanding of combat. Unit 347 had been fighting for 90 seconds. Unleashing enough kinetic force to demolish a reinforced bunker, and the human hadn't even broken a sweat. Marcus continued his strange dance, his feet barely leaving the ground. Every few seconds, he would tilt his head slightly, as if listening to music only he could hear. His hands remained at his sides, relaxed, completely unthreatening. Yet something about his presence had changed. The arena's atmosphere felt different, charged with a tension that even the most battle-hardened species could sense. In the royal viewing box, the Emperor had risen from his throne, his massive form leaning against the railing. "Crushed hell," he rumbled. "Explain to me what I'm witnessing." The engineer's claws worked frantically over her diagnostic display, streams of data flowing faster than most species could process. "The unit is functioning perfectly, Your Majesty. All systems are optimal. Reaction time, force calculation, pattern recognition, everything is operating at maximum efficiency. The human shouldn't be able to avoid even a single strike, yet he's making your perfect machine look slow." The Velker ambassador finished, a note of satisfaction in his gravelly voice. The warrior species had endured much mockery after their champion's defeat. Now they watched the human with intense interest. Unit 347's neural network was experiencing something unprecedented in its operational history: confusion. The machine had no ego to bruise, no pride to wound, but its fundamental programming demanded efficient victory. Every attack was being dodged with such minimal movement that the human's energy expenditure remained negligible. This was wrong. The calculations said it should be impossible. The robot shifted strategies, accessing combat techniques from a species that existed in six-dimensional space. The attacks came from angles that shouldn't exist in normal reality, exploiting quantum probability to strike from multiple vectors simultaneously. It was a technique that had never failed against three-dimensional opponents. Marcus's response was to laugh, a short, genuine sound of amusement that echoed through the silent arena. He stepped backward for the first time, his movement casual, almost lazy. The multidimensional strikes converged on empty space where he had been a fraction of a second earlier. "Nice trick," Marcus called out, his voice steady despite the cosmic forces being unleashed around him. "Reminds me of this bar fight I got into on Epsilon Station. Guy could teleport short distances. Thought he was invincible because of it." The human's casual tone sparked outrage among some species. The Zintharian courtiers hissed their disapproval. This was a sacred combat arena, and the human was treating it like a conversation over drinks. But the Emperor held up a claw for silence, his ancient eyes studying the human with renewed interest. "What happened in this bar fight?" he asked, his voice carrying across the arena. It was highly irregular for the Emperor to speak during a match, but nothing about this challenge was following normal patterns. Marcus dodged another flurry of strikes before answering, his breathing still controlled and even. I waited until I figured out his pattern. Everything has a pattern, even randomness. Then I put my beer bottle where I knew his head was going to be. The human shrugged. "Teleportation doesn't help much when you materialize into a solid object." Unit 347 processed this information and adjusted its approach again. The machine began incorporating true randomness into its attack patterns, using quantum fluctuations to generate unpredictable strike sequences. This was chaos theory weaponized, attacks that should be impossible to anticipate because they weren't determined until the moment of execution. The human started humming. It was a simple tune, something that sounded like an old Earth melody. Marcus hummed while he moved, his body swaying in rhythm with the notes. And somehow, impossibly, he was still avoiding every strike. The random attacks that shouldn't have any pattern were being read and countered by a creature who appeared to be treating the deathmatch as a leisurely stroll. Crushtel's diagnostic display was showing things that made no sense. "The human's neurological activity," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "It's too low. He should be in a state of hyperfocus, maximum cognitive processing. Instead, his brain waves suggest he's almost relaxed." The Porgith ambassador flickered again, its light patterns indicating complex thought. "Your machine thinks in calculations," it observed. "The human is not calculating. He's feeling." "Feeling is inferior to calculation," Crushtel snapped, her scientific certainty challenged by what she was witnessing. "Emotion is chaos. Logic is supreme. That's the foundation of Zintharian philosophy." "Perhaps," the Porgith replied, "but your supreme logic cannot hit him." Unit 347 had now been fighting for 3 minutes. In all previous matches, the machine had achieved victory in under 30 seconds. Its power cells, designed for extended campaigns, were barely touched. Its structural integrity remained at 100%. Yet something in its programming recognized this as the greatest challenge it had ever faced. Not because the human was stronger or faster, but because nothing in its vast database of combat knowledge seemed applicable. Marcus stopped humming. His expression shifted subtly, the amusement fading into something more serious. He had been studying the robot, watching its patterns, understanding its rhythms. Now his blue eyes focused with an intensity that several species later described as predatory. "Okay," the human said quietly, though his words carried across the arena with perfect clarity. "I think I've got you figured out." For the first time since the match began, Marcus moved forward. It wasn't an attack. He still hadn't raised his hands in any aggressive gesture, but there was purpose in his step. Unit 347 responded with a defensive pattern, creating a wall of strikes that should have been impossible to penetrate. The human walked through it like a man walking through rain, getting between the drops. His movements had changed character. Where before he had been reactive, now he was proactive. He wasn't reading the machine's attacks anymore. He was leading them, making the robot commit to strikes that would leave openings, positioning himself so that Unit 347's own attacks interfered with each other. The crowd began to understand what they were seeing. This wasn't a fight. This was a demonstration. The human was teaching the galaxy's most advanced combat machine that all its calculations, all its speed, all its power meant nothing against someone who understood the fundamental truth of combat. Fighting wasn't about being faster or stronger. It was about being smarter, more adaptable, more alive. Unit 347 single quotes S neural network began running scenarios at maximum capacity, creating and discarding millions of tactical options per second. Nothing worked. Every attack was anticipated. Every feint was ignored. Every trap was avoided. The machine escalated again, activating combat subroutines that it had never needed to use before. Techniques so dangerous they were restricted to war scenarios against existential threats. The robot's hands began glowing with plasma energy, each finger capable of cutting through a starship hull. It moved faster than physics should allow, bending space-time around its strikes. The arena's containment field groaned under the strain, energy readings spiking into dangerous territory. Marcus matched the escalation not with power, but with precision. His movements became tighter, more efficient, impossible to track with normal vision. The human and the machine became blurs in the center of the arena, one radiating enough energy to power a city, the other simply moving like water finding its path. Kreshtel was no longer watching her diagnostic displays. She stared at the arena floor, her lifelong certainty crumbling. "It can't adapt fast enough," she whispered. "The human is learning faster than Unit 347. How is that possible? He's organic. He should be limited by neural processing speed, by muscle response time, by being alive." The Emperor interrupted, his voice thoughtful. Perhaps that is precisely his advantage. The match had reached its 5th minute. Warning alerts began flashing across the arena's control systems. Unit 347 was drawing too much power, pushing itself beyond normal operational parameters. The machine's outer casing began showing stress fractures, hairline cracks appearing in the neutron star material that should have been indestructible. And still, it couldn't land a single hit on the human, who now seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. Existing in the spaces between the machine's calculations, Marcus suddenly stopped moving. He stood perfectly still in the center of the arena, his hands still at his sides, his breathing controlled. Unit 347 registered the opening immediately and launched what its processors calculated as the perfect strike, a combination of force, angle, and timing that no organic being could possibly evade, given the laws of physics and the human's current position. The robot's fist shot forward, trailing plasma fire, moving at a significant fraction of light speed. Marcus took one step to his left. Just one step. Minimal movement. Perfect economy. The strike missed by a millimeter. The force of it cratered the titanium floor, sending cracks radiating outward for 50 meters. The shockwave rattled the arena's foundations. 3 containment field generators overloaded and shut down, requiring backup systems to engage. And in that moment, Marcus stood over the fallen machine, breathing normally, his gray athletic wear not even torn. He looked down at Unit 347 with something that might have been sympathy. The robot's optical sensors flickered, its systems attempting to reboot, its neural network trying desperately to understand what had happened. All its calculations, all its predictions, all its perfect engineering had failed to account for one simple variable: creativity born from necessity. The human reached down and patted the machine's chassis gently, the way someone might comfort a wounded animal. "You're good," he said quietly, speaking to the robot as if it could understand encouragement. "Really good." But you only know what you are programmed to know. You can't improvise. You can't feel the fight. You just calculate it. In the royal viewing box, Kreshtal had collapsed into her seat. Her scales faded to a dull gray that indicated shock among Syntherians. Her claws trembled as she stared at the diagnostic data streaming across her displays. Every reading confirmed what her eyes had witnessed, but her mind couldn't accept. Unit 347. Her life's work, the pinnacle of 3 centuries of Syntherian engineering, had been defeated by a kick. One kick. From a human whose species barely qualified for galactic citizenship. The Emperor remained standing, his purple scales reflecting the arena lights. For a long moment, he simply observed the scene below, the broken machine, the human standing calmly, the crowd still frozen in disbelief. Then, slowly, deliberately, he began to clap. The sound echoed through the silent arena like thunder. The gesture broke the spell. Suddenly, the arena erupted, not with the polite applause of a formal ceremony, but with a roar of genuine shock, excitement, and in some cases, savage joy. The Velker delegation was on their feet, their warrior culture recognizing and respecting true combat prowess regardless of species. The Porgeth ambassador's crystalline structure blazed with colors that indicated profound intellectual satisfaction, a theory proven, an assumption shattered. Even species that had no stake in the outcome found themselves caught up in the moment. The Klaxian's mandible clicking became a rhythmic chant. The Nerfuks swirled in their containment spheres, like miniature galaxies in celebration. The four-armed Trekkin pounded their seats in approval, their multiple limbs creating a drumbeat of acknowledgement. Medical drones swarmed onto the arena floor, their sensors scanning Marcus for injuries. They found none. Not a scratch, not a bruise, not even elevated stress hormones. The human had just defeated the galaxy's most dangerous combat machine, and his body showed less strain than a typical workout session would produce. That was wild. Marcus commented to one of the hovering medical drones, rolling his shoulders to loosen them. Haven't had a challenge like that in a while. Usually, cargo running is pretty boring. The drone's sensors flickered in confusion. Its medical database had no protocol for a patient who treated mortal combat as an interesting break from routine. Security protocols activated across the arena as officials scrambled to manage the situation. The Syntherian honor guard, massive warriors in ceremonial armor, descended from the viewing platforms. Their approach was cautious. They had just watched a human dismantle their empire's greatest achievement with one kick. Whatever assumptions they had held about the species were now under serious revision. Marcus watched them approach without concern, his hands visible and non-threatening. He had spent enough time around various alien species to understand the importance of proper protocol, especially after embarrassing a galactic empire in front of 247 witnesses. The head of the honor guard, a scarred veteran whose scales bore the marks of 100 campaigns, stopped a respectful distance from the human. Marcus Chun of Earth, the guard announced formally, the Emperor requests your presence in the royal viewing box. Sure thing, Marcus replied, following as the guards formed an escort around him. As they walked toward the viewing box, he glanced back at Unit 347. The machine was being swarmed by engineering teams, all trying to understand how a joint made from neutron star material had failed. Will the robot be okay? He asked. The guard captain's scales flickered with surprise. Concern for the opponent, especially a machine, was not typical warrior behavior. Unit 347 will be repaired, he confirmed. Its neural network is intact. The physical damage can be corrected. Good, Marcus said genuinely. That's a remarkable piece of engineering. Shame to see it permanently damaged. The comment rippled through the guards, who exchanged glances. Their cultural programming struggled to process a victor, who showed respect for a defeated opponent rather than triumph or or disdain. Journey to the royal viewing box took them through corridors designed to showcase Zintharian power and sophistication. Walls displayed holographic histories of the Empire's greatest achievements: the conquest of 3 star systems, the creation of the first stable wormhole, the development of exotic matter reactors. Marcus observed them with genuine interest, occasionally stopping to examine a particular display more closely, forcing the guards to adjust their pace. "This is fascinating stuff," he commented, studying a hologram showing the construction of a Dyson sphere. "We're still working on basic fusion reactors back home. This kind of megastructure engineering is way beyond us." The guard captain found himself in the unusual position of feeling pride at a compliment from someone who had just humiliated the Empire's technological showcase. "The Zintharian people have pursued excellence across all fields for millennia," he said, the formal response automatic. "Shows," Marcus replied. "That robot was incredible. If I hadn't found that one weakness, I'd probably be a smear on the arena floor right now." The captain's scales shifted to colors indicating confusion. "You speak as if victory was uncertain, yet you never appeared concerned during the match." Marcus shrugged. "Being concerned doesn't help. Either I was going to figure out the robot's weakness, or I wasn't. Worrying about it would just slow me down." They arrived at the entrance to the royal viewing box. Massive doors adorned with precious metals and exotic crystals. The doors opened automatically, revealing the assembled dignitaries, all of whom turned to stare at the human who had done the impossible. The Emperor stood at the center of the room, his massive form dominating the space. Up close, Marcus could see the individual scales that covered the ruler's body, each one etched with microscopic text, the laws and achievements of his reign, a living record of his rule. The human had learned enough about Zintharian culture to understand what that meant. This was a leader who took his responsibilities seriously. "Marcus Chun," the Emperor rumbled, his voice carrying harmonics that made the air vibrate. "Approach." Marcus walked forward, maintaining respectful posture without showing submission. It was a delicate balance, acknowledging authority while asserting his own dignity. The assembled dignitaries watched with intense interest. First contact protocols with humans were still being established, and every interaction provided valuable cultural data. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, executing what he hoped was an appropriate bow. He had looked up Zintharian customs on the flight over, but hadn't expected to actually meet the Emperor. The ruler studied the human for a long moment, his ancient eyes taking in details that others might miss. "You have accomplished something today that will echo through galactic history," he finally said. "The undefeated has been defeated. The perfect machine has been broken. And you achieved this victory with—" He paused, his scales shifting through several colors. "A kick." The way he said the last word made several dignitaries flinch. It wasn't angry, exactly, but it carried layers of meaning that suggested the Emperor was still processing the implications. "Yes, sir," Marcus confirmed. The machine was incredibly advanced, but it was designed with certain assumptions about combat. I just had to find which assumption was wrong. Kreshtel, who had been silent since the match's conclusion, finally spoke. Her voice trembled slightly, scientific certainty warring with observed reality. The joint was designed to withstand pressures that would crush a planet. The neutron star material alone should have made it indestructible to any organic strike. "How did you know it would fail?" Marcus turned to the engineer with genuine respect. "I didn't know for certain," he admitted, "but I've seen a lot of supposedly perfect things break. Usually, it's at the joints, the places where different parts connect. That's where stress concentrates. I figured if there was a weak point, that's where it would be." "But the calculations," Kreshtel protested weakly. "We ran simulations across every possible failure scenario. That joint should not have broken from a simple kick. It didn't break from the kick, Marcus explained. It broke from the robot's own weight and momentum. The machine was fully committed to that last strike, all its mass, all its power, focused forward. I just gave the knee a little push in the wrong direction at exactly the right moment. The robot basically broke itself. The Porgith ambassador flickered with rapid light patterns, its form of laughter. Engineering defeated by philosophy, it observed. The perfect machine undone by its own perfection. The more complex the system, the more points of potential failure. The Emperor raised a claw, silencing the murmurs that had started among the dignitaries. Marcus Chun, you have won the challenge. 1 billion galactic credits will be transferred. The celebration in the royal viewing box continued as various dignitaries approached Marcus, each wanting to speak with the human who had accomplished the impossible. Some came with genuine respect, others with barely concealed curiosity about what this meant for humanity's place in the galactic hierarchy. A species that could defeat Unit 347 clearly had potential that had been overlooked. Marcus handled the attention with an easy grace that surprised many observers. He answered questions honestly, posed for holographic captures with alien dignitaries, and showed genuine interest in learning about the various species present. When a Klaxian warrior asked about Earth's military capabilities, he laughed and admitted that humanity would lose badly in any serious conflict with established galactic powers. We're still figuring things out, he explained to a circle of attentive ambassadors. Most of our ships are held together with optimism and spare parts. We have maybe 20 colonies, all within a few light years of Earth. Compared to civilizations like the Centaurians, we're basically children playing in the shallow end of the pool. The Velker ambassador's translator conveyed his confusion. Then how did you defeat Unit 347? If your species lacks advanced technology and military might, what enabled your victory? Marcus considered the question seriously. Maybe that's exactly why I won. I didn't have any fancy training or augmentations. I couldn't rely on superior technology. All I had was basic human stubbornness and the ability to adapt. When you've got nothing but yourself, you get pretty good at using what you have. The Porgith ambassador flickered thoughtfully. An interesting philosophy. Your species has survived without the advantages most civilizations consider essential. This has perhaps made you more resourceful than races who depend on technology to solve all problems. Could be, Marcus agreed. Back on Earth, we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When you can't overpower a problem, you have to get creative. I grew up on Europa Colony, one of our earliest settlements. When your life support can fail at any moment and rescue is weeks away, you learn to think on your feet and solve problems with whatever you have available. Kreshtel had been listening from the edge of the group, her scales gradually returning to their normal coloration as the initial shock faded. Now she approached, her posture indicating she had made some difficult decision. Marcus Chun, she began formally, I owe you an apology. I dismissed you because of your species' technological level. I assumed advancement in engineering equated to advancement in all areas. I was wrong. The human extended his hand in the earth gesture of reconciliation, then remembered different species, had different customs, and let it drop. No offense taken. I get it, your robot was incredible. You had every reason to be confident. Besides, I learned a lot from fighting it. That 6-dimensional attack pattern? That was genuinely brilliant. I'd never seen anything like that. The engineer's scales brightened slightly at the compliment. The Emperor has asked me to analyze what went wrong. Would you be willing to provide insight into how you identified Unit 347's vulnerability? Understanding this could help prevent similar failures in future designs. Sure, Marcus agreed readily. Though honestly, I was operating more on intuition than analysis. When you're in a fight, you don't have time to consciously think through every option. You just respond to what feels right. This concept clearly troubled several of the assembled species who relied on logical thought processes. The Trekkan military advisor spoke up, his forearms gesturing in patterns that indicated academic interest. You say intuition, but you must have been processing information at some level. How did you know when to strike? Marcus frowned, trying to put unconscious competence into words. It's hard to explain. I watched the robot's patterns, felt its rhythm. Everything moves in patterns. Even randomness has patterns if you watch long enough. When I saw that last strike coming, I just knew the machine was fully committed. All its weight was going forward. The knee was locked to support that movement. A push at the right angle would make all that force work against the joint instead of for it. The Velker ambassador rumbled approvingly. Battle meditation. We know this state when a warrior becomes one with combat itself, moving without thought. Your species has developed this ability naturally? Some of us, Marcus said. It's not common or anything. But yeah, when you train long enough, fighting stops being something you think about and starts being something you just do. Like breathing. The Emperor had been observing the exchange with interest. Now he spoke, his voice cutting through the various conversations. Marcus Chun, your victory today raises important questions about humanity's role in galactic affairs. Your species has remained largely isolated since achieving faster-than-light capability. Perhaps this was premature. A people capable of producing warriors of your caliber deserves greater recognition. Marcus shifted uncomfortably at the direction the conversation was taking. With respect, Your Majesty, I'm just one guy. I don't represent Earth's military or government. I'm a cargo runner who happened to be in the right place at the right time. Don't judge humanity based on me. There are way smarter, stronger, more important people back home. Humility, the Emperor observed. Another trait worth noting. Most species, upon achieving a victory of this magnitude, would leverage it for political advantage. You deflect attention from yourself to your species, then from your species to individuals you consider superior. This is either genuine modesty or sophisticated political maneuvering. It's genuine, Marcus assured him. I know my limits. I got lucky today. Another day, different circumstances, that robot probably would have torn me apart. I found one weakness and exploited it. That doesn't make me special. The Porgoth ambassador's light patterns intensified. But it does make your species interesting. If an average human cargo runner can defeat our greatest combat machine, what might your best warriors accomplish? What might your scientists achieve if given access to galactic technology and knowledge? Marcus could see where this was heading and felt distinctly uncomfortable. He had entered a tournament on a whim, looking for some excitement during a boring cargo run. Now he was apparently representing his entire species in high-level political discussions. Look, I really don't think you should base any major decisions on one fight. Earth is still finding its feet in galactic society. We need time to develop, to learn, to figure out our place among the stars. Rushing that process because I got lucky in an arena seems like a bad idea. The Emperor's scales shifted through several colors before settling on a deep, thoughtful purple. Wisdom and humility from one so young and so victorious. Very well, Marcus Chun. I will not burden you with representing your species in matters beyond your expertise or desire. However, I would ask one thing of you. What's that, Your Majesty? Help Kreshtel understand what happened today. Not the mechanics of the joint failure. She will analyze that exhaustively on her own. But help her understand the philosophy that allowed you to find that weakness. The mindset that sees not what a thing is designed to do, but what it actually does when stressed beyond its parameters. Kreshtel's scales flickered with colors indicating surprise mixed with eagerness. You would be willing to share your knowledge? Even after I dismissed your capabilities so rudely? Of course, Marcus said simply. You built something amazing. Just because it had a weakness doesn't mean it wasn't brilliant work. Besides, I'm curious to learn more about how Unit 347 was made. Maybe we can both learn something." The engineer's posture shifted to one indicating deep respect in Zinthrian body language. "I would be honored to exchange knowledge with you, Marcus Chun. Perhaps together we can design something even better, a synthesis of your intuitive understanding and our technological capability." The Velker ambassador laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "Now this is how progress happens. Not through conquest or domination, but through mutual respect and shared learning. The human defeats our greatest machine and offers to help make it better. This is the warrior's wisdom, to honor your opponent and grow stronger together." As the dignitaries continued their discussions, Marcus found himself reflecting on the strange turn his life had taken. Yesterday, he had been hauling agricultural supplies from a farming colony, bored out of his mind during the long stretches between star systems. Today he was standing in a royal palace, surrounded by representatives of hundreds of alien civilizations, discussing philosophy and combat theory with some of the galaxy's most advanced minds. The Emperor gestured for quiet and raised his claw in a formal gesture. Let it be recorded that on this day, humanity demonstrated capabilities that had been previously unrecognized. The Zinthrian Empire acknowledges Marcus Chun's victory and extends an invitation to Earth to participate more fully in galactic affairs. Furthermore, we propose a cultural and technological exchange program to better understand this species that accomplishes through adaptation what others achieve through advancement. Marcus opened his mouth to again protest that he wasn't qualified to make such arrangements. But the Porgeth ambassador's light patterns caught his attention. The crystalline being flickered in what he had learned was their equivalent of a knowing smile. The ambassador understood that this was political theater the Emperor